Hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. A very warm welcome to all of you to this ITIL 4 webinar. My name is Anand and I'll be the presenter for this webinar. To give you a brief introduction about myself, I am a certified ITL expert, trainer, and a consultant with over a decade of experience in IT service management. I'm a certified ITIL V3 expert and an ITIL 4 managing professional. Today, I'll be taking you through some of the basics of ITIL and give you an idea on what ITIL 4 has to offer. We'll be taking the questions towards the end of the session. We'll have some time to take your questions. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can use the question option in GoToMeeting to put in your questions. We'll be taking them towards the end. ITIL 4 is divided into 5 modules, which is covered over 4 days of training, 4 half days or 4 days of 4 hours each. These 5 modules cover various aspects of ITIL, starting from the basics and delving into the depths of ITIL. Today, I'll be giving you an overview of basic principles of ITIL in this session. In the module 1, which is what we'll be covering today, we'll discuss what is ITIL, evolution of ITIL, what are best practices, frameworks, and guidelines, why do we need ITIL, and a comparison between ITIL v3 versus ITIL 4. We'll also look into some of the basic concepts of ITIL, such as what is a service, what is service management, what is value, components of value, utility and warranty, value proposition, types of stakeholders, and service offerings. These are some of the basic principles that are covered in the module 1 or the basic principles of ITL. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. What is ITIL? In order for us to understand what ITIL is, we have to go back to the future. In early 1980s, the British government basically started a project. So just to quickly show you what all topics are covered in the module 1 or the basic principles of ITIL are on the screen, which is what I was talking about. Today we'll have a brief introduction about ITIL. Let's start by addressing what is ITIL. In order for us to understand what ITIL is, we have to go back to the future, back to early 1980s when it all started. In 1980s, the British government tasked the Central Telecommunication Agency to come up with a framework. In 80s, the version 1 of ITIL was released, which was 30 plus books. At this point of time, only the government organization was a major consumer of ITIL. Fast forward to 1990s, this is where the acceptance started spreading worldwide and ITIL started using in both government and non-government organizations. Move on to 2000s, and this is where a major shift happened when Microsoft used ITIL as a basis to come up with its own framework. Over the course of years, there have been many updates to ITIL version, with the latest version being released last year in 2019. This version is ITIL 4. This is the most latest version. There are many changes that have happened over these 8 years in our IT industry. All these changes have been adopted in ITIL 4, and ITIL 4 is more in alignment with Agile, DevOps, and Lean. Let's talk a little bit about ITIL. When we say ITIL, basically ITIL is a collection of best practices. But what is a best practice? Any practice that have been tried and tested over a period of time and has provided to provide a proven outcome and is widely accepted can be considered as a best practice. ITIL falls in this category. ITIL provides a proven outcome and is widely accepted. In fact, ITIL is a collection of variety of best practices such as Lean, Six Sigma, DevOps, COBIT, Agile, and many more. So what you'll be studying in ITIL is not one practice, but a collection of best practices that have come from variety of industries. When we talk about ITL, we use three basic keywords: collection of best practices, a framework, and guidelines. We have talked about best practices. Now let's take some time to understand how ITL is a framework. Let's start by understanding what a framework is. You would have seen construction of buildings happening. Whenever you see a construction of building happening, it all starts in the similar fashion. The foundation is laid out and the outer structure is created. The outer structure, as you can see in the picture, looks incomplete, right? The building does not look complete in this. However, this outer structure is what provides the strength and integrity to the building. So, a framework can be seen as a skeleton structure that provides strength and integrity. ITL provides us with a framework that can help us develop our processes. So, to summarize, a framework is a foundation on which something is built. ITL provides us a foundation on which we can build our processes. A framework is a skeleton structure that provides integrity. Similarly, ITL is a skeleton structure that provides integrity to our IT infrastructure and services. A framework may look incomplete, but it is essential part. Next, let's talk about guidelines. What are guidelines? On this screen, have a look at the best practices of Facebook. For example, avoid peak times, less but better, and consider boosting. All these look more like recommendations. However, if you look on the left hand side, be responsive, be consistent, these are more like rules. Guidelines can vary from being a rule to a recommendation. When we talk about ITL, ITL gives us a list of recommendations rather than rules. These recommendations can be followed or molded according to one's need, and therefore ITIL is highly flexible in nature. As an organization, I can choose to decide which recommendations I need to follow and which recommendations I can ignore. So, to summarize, guidelines are recommendations for managing IT. These are non prescriptive in nature. So, when we say ITIL, it is not like a standard that you would see wherein you have to follow a series of steps which are mandatory in nature. When we say non prescriptive, we are basically saying nothing is mandatory. As an organization, you can choose to decide what fits within your vision and culture and adopt that aspect of ITIL. So it's not necessary for you to adopt everything that is there in ITIL, which is why ITIL is highly customizable and ranging from a small organization of maybe 50 people to a large organization that has thousands of employees. Everyone can make use and benefit from ITIL. Let's talk about why we need ITIL. One of the challenges that every organization face is trying to stay relevant in today's